My name is Elaine Cooper. I'm 72 years old, a widow, and a retired high school English teacher. I live alone now in the same little house I raised my daughter in, with the same creaky floors and ivy-covered mailbox that's seen more birthdays and bills than I care to count. My husband passed away nearly 20 years ago. Since then, it's just been me, and the roles I never stopped playing. I raised Michelle on my own. It wasn't easy back then. One paycheck, long hours grading papers late into the night, packing lunches before the sun came up. But we managed. I didn't remarry. I didn't want to. My whole heart went into being a mother. When Michelle divorced, she moved back in with her 2-year-old daughter, Lily. I welcomed them both with open arms, no questions asked. I watched Lily grow up, read her bedtime stories, made her Halloween costumes by hand, drove her to piano recitals, and held her when the world felt too heavy. She used to call me her best girl. Even after Michelle remarried and got back on her feet, I stayed close, babysat when needed, paid for summer camps and braces when money was tight, cooked Sunday dinners. I lived frugally, but I always found a way to give. So when Lily announced her engagement, I felt nothing but joy. She'd grown into a lovely, bright young woman. Of course I wanted to contribute to her big day. I didn't have much, but I offered to pay for the photography and video package. I thought, what better gift than to preserve memories? I imagined her watching the video decades from now, seeing her grandparents' faces in the crowd, remembering the family that helped shape her. No one asked how much it cost. I didn't volunteer the number. That's never been my way. I signed the contract quietly, folded the receipt, and tucked it into the drawer in my kitchen next to the tea towels and extra batteries. The night before the wedding, we gathered for the rehearsal dinner at a charming little barn venue, strung with fairy lights and full of rustic charm. Everyone was smiling, clinking glasses, laughing under the soft glow of Edison bulbs. I stood to the side, soaking it all in. That's when Lily approached me. She took my hand gently, smiled, and said, "Grandma, can we talk for a sec?" We stepped outside, just a few feet from the others. The videographer was testing angles. Her fiancé was scrolling on his phone. She looked me in the eyes and said, "The style of the video is kind of modern, minimal. I just think it might be better if you're not in the final cut. It's not personal, it's just the vibe." The vibe. That word sat heavy in my chest like a stone. I searched her face, waiting for her to laugh, to say she was joking, to offer even a flicker of shame. But there was none. Just that same soft smile that now felt so carefully rehearsed. I nodded. "Of course, sweetheart, I understand." And I smiled back, because that's what women like me do. We smile when our hearts are breaking, because we've learned that silence keeps the peace. That night, I went home, made a cup of tea I never drank, and opened the drawer where I kept the receipt. And something inside me, something old and quiet, finally woke up. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, I hope you'll stay for this story. And if it speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. The morning after the rehearsal dinner, I woke up early, as I always do. Habit is a hard thing to unlearn when you've spent decades rising before dawn, packing lunches, getting ahead of lesson plans, checking on the world before anyone else is awake. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold beside me. The wedding contract unfolded in front of me like a road map I'd taken a wrong turn on. I read every line, slowly, carefully. I'd taught students how to dissect Shakespeare. Reading a contract shouldn't have felt this monumental, but it did. Because buried between legal jargon and deposit policies was a decision I hadn't known I was already making. The videographer's number was listed clearly on the page. I dialed it with steady hands. A young woman answered, polite and efficient. When I told her who I was, she recognized the name immediately. I explained I'd like to cancel the service. She paused, then said softly, "Of course, Mrs. Cooper. You're well within the cancellation window. We'll process your refund minus the deposit." That was it. No fanfare, no drama, just done. I didn't tell Michelle. I didn't tell Lily. I didn't even mention it to the neighbor who brings me banana bread every Christmas. I simply stepped back, quietly, deliberately. If I don't belong in the frame, I told myself, then I won't pay to be behind it either. The wedding went on as planned. It was a beautiful day, sun-drenched and crisp, like autumn had decided to play nice for once. I wore a pale lavender dress, one Lily once said made me look elegant. I put on lipstick and my husband's wedding band, now worn on a chain around my neck. I arrived early, took a seat in the back row, and didn't speak unless spoken to. No one mentioned the cameras. No one noticed they weren't there, at least not at first. Lily was radiant, and the ceremony was everything Instagram dreams are made of. White florals, gold accents, rustic barn charm. I clapped when others clapped. I smiled for the disposable cameras passed around by the ushers. I whispered polite congratulations to strangers. I sat there, present, polite, and profoundly out of place. The next morning, the silence broke like glass. Lily called before I'd even made my second cup of tea. "Grandma," she snapped, "no pleasantries. What did you do?" "Good morning to you too," I replied softly. "Don't play dumb," she shot back. "Where were the videographers? There's not a single professional photo." "You canceled them, didn't you?" I paused, then answered evenly. "Yes, I did." Her breath caught. "Why? Why would you do that to me?" I let the words settle before replying. "You asked me not to be in it, sweetheart. I figured I shouldn't ruin your vibe." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then she hung up. Michelle called that afternoon. Her voice was colder than the wind off the lake in January. "What on earth were you thinking, Mom?" she demanded. "I was thinking I didn't want to spend thousands of dollars to be excluded," I said. "You did this to punish her," she hissed. "Admit it." "No," I said firmly. "I did it to respect her wishes. She didn't want me in it, so I made sure I wouldn't be." "You're unbelievable." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how familiar that phrase felt. I was always unbelievable when I stopped doing what they expected. I was unbelievable when I had boundaries. That evening, I sat down with a notepad and opened my online banking account. One by one, I listed the monthly payments I'd been quietly making: $650 to Michelle, temporary rent support that had been going on for 4 years, $100 toward Lily's phone plan, $200 to help Dylan, my grandson, with his car insurance, birthday money, grocery gift cards, back-to-school funds, all invisible acts of service, all attached to a silence they'd come to depend on. I didn't cancel everything at once. I didn't need to, just one click at a time, like turning off light switches in a house I no longer lived in. That night, I didn't cry, not even a little. I sat in my living room, hands folded in my lap, the TV humming in the background, and for the first time in a very long while, I felt still. Not happy, not angry, just present. They wanted me erased from the video, so I quietly stepped out of their story. But I wasn't the one who vanished. They were. A few days after the wedding, Michelle called again. This time, she didn't bother with small talk. "You need to fix this," she said sharply. "Call the company. Have them come back. Something. Lily's devastated." "It's too late," I replied calmly. "The wedding is over." "Then schedule something else. A photo shoot, a video session. You owe her that much." "I don't owe her anything," I said quietly. "Not anymore." "You're being petty, Mom. You did this to punish her." There it was again, punish. As if my silence was a weapon, as if stepping back from their expectations was an attack. "No," I said, and I could feel something steady rising in my chest. "I did this because I realized I've spent decades paying to be ignored." There was a pause on the line, just long enough for my next words to arrive. "I've helped pay your rent, Michelle. I've watched your kids. I covered Lily's braces, her camp, her books. I contributed to Dylan's car insurance, Olivia's tuition. I've cooked every Thanksgiving, sent Christmas cards stuffed with money, made sure no birthday passed without a gift. I never asked for anything in return. Not thanks, not acknowledgement, just a seat at the table." Another silence, but this one wasn't empty. It was heavy, dense with things we never said. "I need to go," Michelle muttered, and she hung up. After that, the requests came in quietly, like waves washing up on shore. Dylan texted to say his insurance bounced. Olivia emailed about textbook help. Michelle's second husband left a voicemail about a missing tax form. None of them asked how I was. None of them mentioned the wedding. Only Lily stayed completely silent. I didn't reply to any of them. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood. I wasn't cruel. I was just done. For years, I had poured into that family like a pitcher that never emptied, and they drank without ever noticing who held it. Now they were thirsty and they didn't know how to fill their own glasses. I wasn't angry. I was awake. The days that followed were oddly peaceful. I woke up early, not to pay bills or check in on utility accounts, but to stretch, brew tea, and sit by the window. One Wednesday morning, I walked to the local library and signed up for the book club. On Saturday, I joined a watercolor class at the community center. The instructor, a woman named Lisa with silver-streaked curls and paint smudges on her sleeves, handed me a set of brushes and said, "You're gonna like it here. No pressure, just paint." And I did. I painted small things at first, an apple on a windowsill, the inside of a teacup, the folds of a linen napkin. But then, something in me reached further. I began to paint the moments I didn't have words for. A kitchen table with one plate, a hallway filled with framed photos turned face down, a mailbox stuffed with letters unopened. Lisa invited me to join a small gallery showing for local seniors. "Pick whatever piece you're proudest of," she said. "We'll hang it front and center." I chose a canvas I had worked on quietly for 3 weeks. It showed a long wedding table under soft lighting, every place set with care. But at the far end, there was a single empty chair illuminated by a warm glow, quiet, still. On the evening of the gallery, a little girl walked in with her mother and stopped in front of the painting. She tilted her head and asked, "Is that your seat?" I smiled, my throat tightening with something like joy. "It was," I said. "But now I've built my own room." People came and went that night, friends from class, neighbors I hadn't seen in years. A woman stood in front of my painting for a long time. When she turned to me, her eyes were damp. "It's like being uninvited without ever being told," she whispered. I nodded. I know that feeling. A few days later, I was walking back from the market when I saw Michelle across the street, standing outside the coffee shop with her phone in her hand. She looked tired, older than I remembered. We locked eyes. She didn't wave. Neither did I. But for the first time, there was no anger in me, just clarity. She hadn't lost me at the wedding. She had let me go long before that when she stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a service. And I'd let go too. For the first time in 72 years, I wasn't waiting for anyone to notice me. I had finally noticed myself. My days are simple now, and I like them that way. I wake up without urgency. No bills to rush and sort, no calls to check on overdue payments. Just warm tea, the scent of paper from half-read books, and silence, the kind that feels clean, not lonely. I paint most afternoons, slow and steady. I read again, not to escape, but to remember who I was before I became everyone else's backup plan. The quiet doesn't ache anymore. It feels like truth. One afternoon, a message lit up my phone. It was from Olivia, my youngest granddaughter. Her words were short, but they didn't feel small. "Grandma, I miss you. I don't know everything that's happened, but I'd love to visit, just you and me, if that's okay." I didn't reply right away, not out of anger, not out of pride, but because I've learned something. Love has to come free, not bought through sacrifice or silence. And if Olivia was reaching out with honesty, she'd wait, and I'd know when it was time. A few days later, a pink envelope arrived in the mail, thick paper, scented even. Inside was a neatly printed card. "Family lunch this Saturday, let's reconnect, we miss you." There was no apology, no name signed at the bottom, just branding, just optics. I picked up the phone and dialed Michelle. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" "It's me," I said. "I got your invitation." She paused. "I wasn't sure if you would." "I won't be attending," I said simply. Another pause. "Mom, can we just—" "No," I said, calm and clear. "You don't miss me. You miss the version of me who asked for nothing." I hung up before she could respond. Not in anger, in peace, because I am no longer here to fill empty chairs in other people's stories. I've built a life where I take up space, fully, freely, finally. You can love people who never deserved your silence. And when you finally choose yourself, it doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. Thank you for listening to Elaine's story. If it touched something in you, let us know in the comments or share it with someone who's always been in the background. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Real Her stories, because every woman deserves to be seen.